Well, folks, welcome in to the latest edition of the Fight Freaks Unite recap show exclusively on YouTube in the aftermath of the Ring TV pay-per-view on DAZN, where the headline is Hamzah Shiraz. Kabloom. Not just boom, Dan Rafael, kabloom. He takes out Edgar Berlanga with a fifth-round TKO, an impressive win in the super middleweight main event, co-main event win for Shakur Stevenson. Very impressive, I thought, down the stretch of the fight with William Zepeda. We're going to talk about both of those fights and much more. Thank you for finding us on YouTube, either live or on demand. Dan, we had several thousand people find us on the Friday night Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano recap. So thank you to the YouTube peeps that are finding us exclusively here on the Big Fight Weekend channel. We are live in the recap mode here. Great to be back with everybody on this Saturday night. Help us out. Subscribe, hit the like button. Make sure that you're locked in on the YouTube channel. Plenty more content to come. All of that out of the way. Let's get right into it. Wow. Hamzah Shiraz. Now, one of us thought Shiraz would win. I did not think he would blitz Berlanga like that. Your thoughts on what we just saw in New York?
I mean, first of all, forget about Berlanga specifically and Shiraz specifically. I want to talk just in general terms about the whole show. That was the best pay-per-view I've seen in a long time, top to bottom. All right, you had a prospect, the kid from Japan, Sasumi. Yeah, he's in with a not a particularly solid opponent, but he's in his second pro fight. He looked awesome knocking him out. That's what you want to see from a prospect. Then they got going with the real fights, and every single one of them delivered. Right, David Morrel against Khatev was a fantastic fight. They were in just a slugfest from the opening bell. Both guys showed a lot of heart. They both gave, they both took. I mean, it was a tremendous battle, evenly matched. Love that match. Next fight, the title fight between WBC junior welterweight title holder Alberto Puello and the former WBO title holder Subriel Matias. Put on a tremendous battle. Great clash of styles. Matias, we'll get to all the details, but pressure. Puello trying to box. They put on a fantastic fight. Close all the way. And then you get to the co-feature, all the talk with Stevenson. Is he going to run? Is he going to stand like a man and fight? He stood like a man and fought, but he showed his skills also. Fantastic fight. Thought the scores were crazy wide, but that's just me. But another terrific fight. And then the main event, yeah, maybe a little bit of a slow start. And then, as my good friend TJ likes to say, boom goes the dynamite. So we'll talk about the Berlanga. Shiraz, look, whatever you thought about the stinky performance he had in the Adames fight, I do believe he struggled making the weight. I do believe that Andy Lee is a future Hall of Fame trainer, and he's showing it with the things he's doing, not only in this fight with Shiraz, but other clients that he has worked with. He is a boxing man through and through. He continues the great lineage of Emmanuel Stewart, who was his trainer and manager for all the years. And Andy is a great boxing mind, and it's clear to me that the combination of the weight that he was able to gain Shiraz to be not struggle as much, combined with what Andy brings to the table in terms of his brain, his calm demeanor, his also the ability to instill confidence, knows what the guy's going through. He's not that long retired from his own professional career where he was a middleweight world champ. He's worked with some top-notch fighters, including Tyson Fury and others. And he was fearless, came to Berlanga's hometown in New York. And after and even he admitted in the interview afterwards, he was losing that fight through the first few rounds, but it's a 12-round fight. You don't have to win round 1 and 2 necessarily. But he then, of course, had 2 spectacular knockdowns in round number 4?
4 in the 4th round, at the end of the 4th round, right at the end.
And
we'll dissect that some. Yeah,
I'll give Edgar Berlanga a lot of credit for getting up both times, because either one of those knockdowns could easily ended the fight. So he showed
certainly the
heart of a
second one,
lion in that fight.
I thought on the second one he was going to get counted out, but he got up. It was right at the end of the round. We'll get into all of that. And they let him come out for the 5th round. Again, we assume everybody watching us has seen it. There are probably some that didn't see it on pay-per-view, but maybe have now seen the finish of the fight on social media, etc. But, I mean, Shiraz came in, measured at the beginning of the 5th round, and then whap, 2 big punches.
Well,
Berlanga down again, and the fight is stopped. Dan.
I'm very sure that when the referee saw the punishment that he took on the 2 knockdowns in round number 4, that he was certainly going to be on high alert, let's say, for something that might rock him early on. And so had the knockdowns not occurred in round number 4, and he took those same kind of punches that he took in round number 5 that staggered him, the referee probably doesn't stop the fight. But because he was down so brutally in the previous round, the referee obviously made the right call to stop the fight. I thought that David Fields, who was an outstanding referee, in my opinion, particularly with his ability to handle heavyweight fights, thought he gave Berlanga, the slow walk in round number 4, kind of a little extra time to my liking, to that basically let him survive the round. But it didn't matter because he was not able to recover after what happened. The 1 minute rest period was just not enough, and Berlanga got dusted. And so now you ask yourself, okay, whatever your position was about Berlanga before this fight, he's now lost both times he's been at the highest level. He got obviously lost, a wide decision and got dropped by Canelo. Although in the aftermath, most of us thought, okay, he did a much better job in that fight than most people thought. I don't know if that's a credit to Berlanga or maybe we're seeing, the downslide of Canelo Alvarez. But whatever it was, after a slow start, Hamzah Shiraz just put it on him. And, the size difference was dramatic. This was Hamzah's first fight at 168. Fine. But if you didn't know that, you look and you see a giant against a small guy because Hamzah is a much taller man, has much, much bigger reach, and just physically much larger than in every dimension. And also was a good puncher at 160. And clearly it has come with him to 168 pounds because he tagged Edgar.
Yes.
And, even when Edgar's been with other good fighters, Canelo dropped him, but he never really punished him. He never really hurt him too much.
That was a one punch. Just to dissect it, that was a one punch flash knockdown in that fight. And correct me if I'm wrong. You were there ringside. I'm trying to remember.
I was there
and keep track of it. Did you ever sense that Berlanga was hurt?
No.
Like he was hurt after those Shiraz?
That's what I'm just saying. No, the answer is no. He got dropped, but he got up, dusted himself off, and it was never really, other than on the scorecards where he lost the point, it was never a factor in my view in the remainder of the fight. These knockdowns that he took against Shiraz were obviously a heavy duty factor because he was not recovered, and therefore the fight was stopped, just a few seconds into the next round when he took a rough combination and staggered on the shot. If he didn't go down on those punches, but if the ref doesn't stop it, clearly he's getting drilled. You don't want to see him, go to the hospital and be out cold. I mean, the point was making that Shiraz was the better man. End of story on that one.
Again, a lot of live audience joining us. We love it. Here on YouTube as we're doing this live on Saturday night. We've given some opening thoughts. I'm using the word there on the screen, overrated, for Berlanga. I think you can make the case that, Canelo's a Hall of Famer. Yes, this is Shiraz's first fight in the division. It's all set up for Berlanga at home in New York, and he got blitzed here, and the critics are going to be out. You know this. You've done it for a long time. They're going to be out for Berlanga. Go ahead.
Well, that's first of all, that's boxing. You lose a fight like that and the critics are going to come for it. Just imagine, and I'll date myself a bit, when Marco Antonio Barrera got beat twice in a row by Junior Jones, people left the man for dead, D-E-A-D. And guess what? He came back and put on one spectacular fight after another, made himself into a lock Hall of Famer, won multiple world titles after that, scored humongous wins against Eric Morales and Prince Nassim and others, and you don't write him off. I'll use another example. My man Vladimir Klitschko left for dead after he got knocked out by Lemon Brewster, another knockout loss in his career. His brother, the great Vitaly Klitschko, suggested he should retire. Vladimir Klitschko then went on one of the greatest streaks in the history of heavyweight championship boxing and became a Hall of Famer and one of the legends of the sport. So, and I'm not saying that Berlanga is going to do that, okay?
Right.
My point is only that you can have the worst night of your career, which Edgar Berlanga had tonight, and you can still, with hard work, a little luck, a little proper recovery time and matchmaking and mental focus and all the things that go into it, can rebuild yourself. So, I'm not going to write him off the same way I'm not going to write off other guys that lost on the show tonight. You know what I'm saying? So, again, the chances are, because Berlanga, as a lot of people have not thought that much of his abilities even before this fight, even before the Canelo fight, and he still hasn't really beaten a top-level guy. So the chances that he becomes a Barrera, or a Klitschko or somebody like that are not great. But, he's 28 years old. I doubt he's retiring. He's made great money in his last few fights. But he's a fighter, and that's what he does. And he showed a lot of balls and heart and got up. And let me ask you a question. So he lost the fight by a knockout. You wouldn't want to see the guy in another fight? Of course you would, the way he fights, in my opinion.
All right. Much to get to here. We're going to talk.
What's your point? Do you want to see him again?
I'm not making a point about whether he should retire or
No,
not.
I'm saying,
The
do you want to
point-
see him in the ring again? Would you watch the fight? Would you be interested to
I
see?
probably would have some level of interest, but I'm not as interested after I watched Canelo beat him decisively and I watched Shiraz knock him out. He's got to prove more to me if you're asking me my opinion about Berlanga. And I think it is fair to use the word overrated right now because he was hyped for a while by Top Rank, etc. He moved away from Top Rank. He did get the shot with Canelo.
The reason I would not say the word overrated is accurate because he's never been he's talked big, but most people, media and fans have just said basically, here's a good, solid super middleweight. They never made him out to be the top contender or superstar, great. You know. Yeah. So I think he's been rated fairly where he's been. So I wouldn't say he's overrated. He's a good fighter. He's a quality puncher and all that, but you know, he is what he is. He's a guy that fits in the middle of the division.
All right. Again, we'll get to some comments in a little bit here while we're in the recap mode. Let's turn to the co-main, the co-feature on this, and that is Shakur Stevenson. I put the word convincing. Certainly the back half of the fight, he was convincing, winning a unanimous decision over William Zepeda. So two things for me. The first thing is, I thought it was strange that tactically he stayed on the ropes a bunch early on in the fight, almost daring Zepeda to come at him, punch him. He was kind of leaning back as we do this on video with his right shoulder and his left glove up. He did it over and over again early. And then he kind of got on the front foot and was a little more aggressive and began to open up a little bit. And I thought he wore Zepeda down, especially championship rounds, 10th, 11th, and 12th round. And Shakur was the better fighter. Those are my thoughts. What are your thoughts analyzing his decision win over the guy that is regarded as the best contending lightweight, Zepeda of Mexico?
Well, I thought that he won the fight, number one. It was a really good fight. And by Shakur Stevenson standards, we've been so harsh on some of the recent fights he's had because they've been so terrible. You know, to compare what happened in this bout to what we saw in fights like Edwin De Los Santos or Hartunian, this was a revelation. This was an excellent fight to watch. I feel like by matching up with another quality fighter, it did bring the best out of Shakur. Like he understood, and I'm not trying to speak for him. I'm just giving you my impression, having interviewed Shakur and many times and all that. I don't think he really had any true fear or worry or concern about a guy like De Los Santos or Hartunian. Not to mention he was injured in the De Los Santos fight, yes. Not to make excuses for him. So he still went out there and he won the fights pretty handily. But I do think there was, I'm not going to say fear, but concern about what Zepeda brought to the table. Like I'm sure he watched some video of the guy, or certainly his team watched video and told him what to expect. So when you know you're going in with a guy who's a hard-charging fighter from Mexico with massive aggression that does literally throw about 100 punches around and has heavy-duty punching power, you know that you're going to be maybe in for a tough night. So you're going to have to bite down. So he got himself in great condition. He looked a lot physically stronger to me tonight, the way his body was proportioned and some of the muscularity that he had added over the course of the camp, getting ready for this fight. If you look at his body compared to the way he looked during the Padley fight, like that was back in February, he just looked physically stronger. And even he said after the fight, when he goes back to the drawing board, so to speak, he's going to try to get even more physically stronger. So that's important for when you're fighting these types of fights. But in terms of his performance, the scores of the fight, I thought were excessively wide, in my opinion. 119 to 109, 118 to 110 twice. I thought it was much, much closer. I had the fight really close and Zepeda winning up until the latter part of the fight. In the end, I did have Shakur winning 7 rounds to 5, but I gave him 6 of the last 7 rounds. So I had him behind. You know, I gave Zepeda most of those early rounds. The aggression and the landing punches were tremendous. But Shakur, as he said, I had to dig deep into my bag and pull out what I had because he was tough. Anybody that wanted to say, I want to see Shakur Stevenson prove something tonight. I want him to show that he's not just this defensive specialist, that he can bite down and so-called, quote unquote, fight like a real man. Well, he did that. So if you're unsatisfied, you're just not satisfiable. What he fought a tremendous fight, and it was exciting and it was smart, and he did a lot of different things. He showed a lot of different wrinkles in his game.
What did you make of his early strategy of laying back on the ropes? I know Antonio Tarver on the broadcast with Jim Lampley kept saying, I don't know what he's doing. Why is he doing it? Lampley even made mention, like in the second or third round, that Antonio Tarver is waving his hand at Shakur, get out of the corner, get off the ropes.
Highly inappropriate for the commentator
right,
to
for
be
the
doing
commentator
that.
to be doing that.
And I say that with nothing but love for my man.
I know we love Tarver time, but what do you make of why Shakur was doing that? Was it part of a strategy to lure him in and counterpunch him, maybe wear him down for later in the fight? It's not like he did it once or twice. He did it over and over again early in the fight.
No, I'm sure that it was a combination of things. It was, let me see what he has. Let me tire him out a little bit. Let me see and kind of assess his power. And let me counter also, because one of the things that he does very, very well is counterpunch. And so I didn't think it was anything ridiculous. I mean, you probably don't want to lay on the ropes against a big puncher like that, a guy that's going to swarm you and just be right up in your face. Not the best move. He's better served for his skill set to be in the center of the ring, where his back's not on the ropes, and you can just dazzle with your shots where you can land, and the judges, no matter where they're sitting, are going to see it clearly. But to do that for a couple of rounds or 3 rounds, I mean, it's a long fight. Got 12 rounds to work with. And I think he wanted to just do those things, assess what he had in front of him, let him tucker himself out a little bit, although that's hard to do when the guy has not shown that in the past. He says, has always shown if he's going deep into a fight, Zepeda's shown he's got the good engine, as they say. I don't think it hampered him. And he slipped a lot of shots. But the thing that impressed me, number one, he showed a good chin. A lot of people have questioned, well, what's going to happen when Shakur gets hit? Well, let me tell you, he got hit with some very solid shots tonight. But he had a lot of good combinations that landed, and Zepeda took the shots, but he was rocked a few times, no doubt about it. They had some moments where they basically went back and forth. Shakur would rip off 3 or 4 punches, and Zepeda would answer. There was a lot of body work from both guys. It was just a classy fight. It was the kind of fight, and I say this every single time there's a fight of consequence. In the end, the goal here is, A, we are entertained, and B, both guys, when the fight's over, elevate themselves. Shakur absolutely elevated himself by winning this fight, retaining his title. And I think Zepeda elevated himself also because, he didn't win the fight. He sure looked a hell of a lot better than he did against Tevin Farmer.
Absolutely.
And Shakur is a lot better than Tevin Farmer, in my opinion. And I don't think there's anybody out there that's a boxing fan that, so he lost, even if it was wide on the cards, I believe it was much closer. But even still, even if you think it was wide on the cards, you wouldn't want to see William Zepeda tee it up with anybody else in the division? Of course you would.
And I had the fight on the big fight weekend card. I had the fight 4-4 going into the final 4 rounds and gave Shakur all 4 of those rounds. And he was very impressive. In particular, he was pot shotting. I love that boxing phrase with that left uppercut, that lead left uppercut. He landed numerous times in the fight. And I thought Zepeda was tired. 11th round, 12th round, especially. He didn't have the same zing. He wasn't landing with any effectiveness. Stevenson got him into the late rounds because he's been in a lot of 12-round fights.
He was throwing a ton of punches, and he was expending a tremendous amount of energy, and he was taking a lot of punches. And as you mentioned from your score, I'm looking at what I have here. I had Shakur, or let me say, I had after round 8, I had Zepeda winning 77-75 after giving him the 8th round.
You had
and then
5-3 Zepeda after 8, and then you gave Shakur all the last 4 rounds?
Yeah, 77-75 after 8, and then I gave Shakur the final 4 rounds of the fight, which I thought were pretty clear in my mind.
All right, we're going to get to your comments. Dan, it is off the charts how many people are commenting. We'll try to get to some of them.
What do we think I want to talk about what's next for Shakur and these guys.
Savages, hang on. What is next here at 135? The Schofield fight did not happen earlier this year for whatever reason, the week of the fight in Saudi Arabia. Is that next? Is it something else next in your mind?
That's certainly the fight that Schofield said he wants. That's the fight that Oscar De La Hoya, his promoter, said he wants. That was in the immediate aftermath of him knocking out Tevin Farmer in the first round. The fight was made for earlier in the year. So they were able to make, obviously, a financial deal and all that, and Turkey would still be involved with that. So if Turkey wants to try to put it back together, I see zero reason. I guarantee you that Shakur would accept that fight. It seemed pretty obvious that Schofield and his people were interested in the fight. So, yeah, I would have no problem if they made that match. Why not? I mean, it's there'll be a lot of storyline because of what happened in the fight that took place back in, or that didn't take place, I should say, back in February. He's got the Farmer fight to go off of, which was a big win for him. That's obviously his biggest win. But it's not like he's the only game in town. I mean, the other champions in the division, it's kind of they're in a tough spot because the WBO belt is vacant at the moment since Lomachenko, or not Lomachenko, but
Keyshawn Davis.
Yeah, Keyshawn Davis got stripped. So that fight
got stripped, right?
That will be filled by the November fight between Abdullah Mason and Sam Noakes. Those guys, whoever wins the title in that fight, won't be ready for Shakur in the next fight because they're fighting each other, and frankly, not ready for Shakur on a competitive level either. So I don't even look at that as a possibility. The IBF title holder is Ray Murataya. He has a mandatory that has been ordered. We'll see what happens with that. And then the WBA champion is Gervonta Davis, who was arrested, and his August fight that was supposedly happening, I'm very confident won't happen, at least not in August. He's going to be dealing with his legal issues, and even without the legal issues, there was a good chance that fight wouldn't happen. I'll tell you what Shakur could do, though, and I think this, if Gervonta really is going to be on the shelf for a while, or isn't going to fight in August, or even in September or October or whatever, I'll tell you a fight that would be a really interesting match would be make him against Lamont Roach. Roach deserves the opportunity.
You scare me. I was about to ask that very question, and you came up with it first, which is if the availability of Davis is in question here over the next 60 to 90 days, why not an October-November fight
100%
with Lamont Roach?
And like I said, about the Muay fight's probably not available to Unify, mainly because he just was ordered to do the mandatory against well, actually, I take that back. He was made the mandatory, but he still has time to get in an optional if he wants. Again, Andy Cruz is the mandatory. So theoretically, they could try to make that match. I just don't see Murataya in his first defense going in with Shakur, unless Turkey comes with the big bags, as the kids say. I guess anything is possible. But I think that his next fight, I think the one that makes the most sense, that's the most makeable, is probably either Schofield or I'd love to see him with Roach. I think Roach deserves the opportunity.
Schofield, sign me up. That's interesting. After being in the Honda Center 2 weeks ago tonight and watching him blitz Farmer, you now have more appeal on that win and Shakur's win tonight for those two guys to fight later this fall. Again, we're live here on YouTube. If you're just finding us, the live audience, Dan, is swelling and growing. We love it. In the aftermath, we're not going to be able to get to all the comments. There are hundreds of them that are
read
streaming.
A few questions or a few comments. Don't go through all of them.
Let's fire a few in on whoever got here first.
It doesn't matter who got here first. It's who's best.
I'm just
with your best shit.
Here we go. Alaska Bo, who's watching us, says best boxing card I've seen in a long time. Great action throughout.
Agreed.
I would agree with that. Boxing God, same thing. We see these guys with us on our Bet US show all the time. Thank you for finding us here. Commander Vander in here all the time says that card was really good. Julio says, love these recaps. Please keep continuing with these. We intend to. 2000 Ravens, big fan, I guess, of Ray Lewis, says Edgar is done in boxing. I don't know that he's done, but he certainly he's got to get his footing back under him after this.
Everybody loves to jump to the conclusion. They see a decisive victory or a decisive loss, and the guy that wins is the next big thing, and the guy that loses is a piece of shit. And I just don't buy that. I've been doing this too long to deal with that because it's just not true. Sometimes it is, but very oftentimes it isn't.
Bruce watching says, we in here that we like that. He says, way to set up Shiraz Canelo. All right, let's go right there. What is the likelihood, should Alvarez be victorious with Terrence Crawford, that Hamzah Shiraz is on the radar for Canelo 2026? What do you think, Dan Rafael?
Oh, absolutely. Turki Al-Sheikh is the paymaster. He said publicly and to the fighter, I'm going to give you Canelo Alvarez. Remember, whatever happens in the Crawford fight, I mean, unless Canelo decided to retire, win or lose, but if he wins or he loses and he continues with his career, it'll still be a big deal. And he still has two more fights left with Turkey after the Crawford fight. So it's very obvious that one of those fights, he's going to probably fight twice in the year unless there's injuries or some other compelling reason why he wouldn't. But if he does, you're looking at the two names. These are not secrets. One is going to be Hamzah Shiraz, who I don't think is going to not fight again until like next September, let's say, if that was when it was going to be. You're not going to hold the guy out for more than a year.
May, right?
Well, I'm saying there's two. If he fights in May, but he takes another opponent, because the two opponents that they're talking about are either Shiraz or Chris Eubank Jr. Now, if Eubank Jr., he's got his rematch coming up with Conor Benn. If he wins the rematch, either one of them would be ready to go by May. So one guy might get the fight, and then the other guy wouldn't get till September. So again, whoever is the odd man out for the May fight, they're not going to probably sit around and wait. Now, maybe Eubank would do that because he's older. His fight with the rematch with Ben is not until later in the year. But if it's Shiraz and you just want to fight here in July, and you're supposed to lay off until next September, I mean, it would make I would think he would have another fight. But the point here is this. Unquestionably, the names that are going to be most discussed for the next two Canelo Alvarez fights, again, things can change, but at this moment, it will be Chris Eubank who probably would have to beat Ben in the rematch, and Hamzah Shiraz. There's no, that's, that's pretty clear.
Somebody gets the golden ticket if that's the case. Back to the comments.
And by the way, from the Shiraz point of view, he just dusted the guy that Canelo had to go 12 with. So
that's
there's
correct.
some compelling aspect for that. And Chris Eubank, even though he's fighting Conor Benn in the middleweight division, both in the first fight and in this rematch, has ample experience as a super middleweight. He has fought numerous fights in the super middleweight division against a number of quality opponents on top of that. So that's a legit fight also if they do that fight at 168.
More comments from the Savages. David says, what a great card. Highly entertaining. Thank you for watching us, David, here tonight. Kyle says that Hamzah looked like a Kronk guy from the 80s. He's complimenting like out of the lineage of Thomas Hearns. And
well, that's Andy Lee with Emmanuel
there
Stewart.
You go.
Jackson. I mean, Andy Lee trained at Kronk when he became a professional.
And Jim Lampley right away before the fight began says Shiraz looks long and lanky, but I saw Andy Lee as a skinny, big-time puncher that seemed to come out of nowhere. He almost teed it up and foreshadowed what we saw from Shiraz. And we had seen Shiraz bomb a couple of guys out before the Adames fight. Oh, yeah. And now
he did it to Emil Williams.
He
did it to William Williams. He did it. He did it to Denzel Bentley. But I would say Andy Lee, when he came into the pros as a boxer, before he became a trainer, obviously, he didn't definitely not come out of nowhere. This was a Irish Olympian who was heavily touted, who was looked at by many as a future superstar and a future champion. A lot of promoters tried to sign him. Emmanuel got him and was his manager, and had Andy live with him. Andy lived with Emmanuel for a long time when he relocated from Ireland to Detroit to begin his professional career. I covered numerous Andy Lee fights, been around him a million times, just a tremendous person. And as I said before, when we were talking about the fight, a brilliant boxing mind just from his own experience as an amateur. But to spend all those years at the knee of the great Emmanuel Stewart, you better damn learn something. And he has.
Agreed. And he helped impart it on Shiraz. Shiraz got to do the work, and he did the work tonight. More comments. KB says Hamzah looked huge. He does. He looks tall. He looks like he could easily be a light heavyweight. But for now, he's going to stick at 168 and see what the options are. Let's see who else. Mr. Big Play says, does this make people think Bud gets a shot at Canelo now? I don't know how we connect those dots based on what we saw tonight from Shiraz.
They're fighting each other.
Well, right, but does what? I don't know what this is. Does this make people think? Does Shiraz knocking out Berlanga make people think because Berlanga went the distance with Canelo? Is that what he means by extension?
Let's move on.
We will move on. From that, what else? A lot of the same people commenting here.
Let's get to the other fights, my friend.
Let's see. We will in a second. Luke says, great stuff, great action tonight from the whole card. We agree on that. Andrew, the only reason I picked Shiraz is because he handled Ammo so well, meaning Austin Ammo Williams. Francisco makes a good point, too, that Terry Norris had 3 losses before he became champion, including a devastating KO by Julian Jackson.
That's a very good point.
It doesn't necessarily write you off that you lose along these regards.
Not only did Terry Norris become a champion, he became a Hall of Famer.
I'm just looking for any new commenters.
Let's get to the other fights.
We're good. Let's do that while we're here. What else on the undercard here this evening? Let's start with the Matias Puello as we descend down. Thoughts on that narrow decision win for Subriel Matias? Did you agree with that?
I had the fight a draw, to tell you the truth. I had it 6 rounds to 6, but I had no problem with the fight the way that it wound up. I mean, it was a close fight. Both guys did their thing. That's the thing. Most of the time when you see a boxing match, the whole concept of what's going to happen is who's going to impose their style. You know, if it's like in the case of if it's Shakur against Zepeda, Shakur was able to impose more of his boxing style and counter punching than Zepeda was in terms of his overall aggression and body work and all that. But in terms of the Puello and Matias fight, Matias is just a pure brawler, pure puncher, a guy that just goes right at you. And he did that for 12 rounds. And Puello is more of a boxer. He is more of a counter puncher. He's more of a guy that will come off the ropes. And he did that also. And so in the end, I agreed with one of the judges, which was 114 to 114. The other 2 judges gave it to Matias, 115, 113. If you were listening to the commentators, they seemed to feel like that it was Puello that was slightly ahead. was that kind of fight. I mean, there was really, again, no losers in terms of the public opinion, I don't think, because I've never been a big Puello fan, but now I'm more interested in him after seeing his performance in that fight. Matias has always been exciting to watch when he's won or lost. I find the very interesting thing about the way that went down is that Matias came into this bout with a couple of losses, but he had never went the distance in a win. All of his previous 22 victories were all by knockout. This was the first time he ever went to the cards and actually won the fight. Very, very close. And I was surprised how good that fight was, because I know a lot of people were thinking about Matias and sort of the way he brings his style, and it's always exciting. But I thought that Puello might kind of maybe stink him out a little bit, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then, of course,
also,
when the fight
let's interject. Matias looked terrible in the fight with Liam Paro. So in the back of your mind, you're concerned until you saw at least tonight. No. At least tonight, he looked like a totally different fighter.
I wasn't concerned at all because he came back and won a fight since then, and he did fine. And Paro had a certain style, and I think that maybe that when Matias had that fight, he was a little overcome by having the fight in his hometown and distracted, and that's a real thing. It happens sometimes. So I wasn't like overly concerned about that. And then when the fight was over, with Matias getting the victory, you know, Dalton Smith, who's been the mandatory for the WBC, he's there at the fight. He is the next guy, and they made the announcement in the ring basically that, you know, that's the match he's making for Matias to fight in the defense against Dalton Smith. That will put it on that November 22 card they're doing in Riyadh. And then later in the show, they were like, whoever wins the fight between Dalton Smith and Matias, we're going to give Puello a rematch. Or we're, you know, the rematch with Matias or the fight with Dalton Smith.
I heard that because I guess Turkey Al-Sheikh relayed that to Chris Mannix.
But there's nothing wrong with
Mike Coppinger, and they relayed it on the air, and I'm going, we just had the result about 20 or 30 minutes ago, and we're already now creating something for Puello down the road. Okay.
I don't think there's a look, he lost a 1-point fight. The mandatory is going to happen. And I like the concept, and I wish it was utilized more in boxing. If a guy loses, you don't just discard him. If he puts in an effort, if he makes a good fight, if he creates some drama, if there's a reason that you want to see him again, bring him back. So fucking what that he lost the fucking fight? He lost by 1 point to a guy that was also a former champion in an outstanding fight. Why wouldn't you want to see the guy again? And I suspect that when Matias and Dalton Smith tee it up, that'll be some heavy-duty action in that fight for as long as it goes as well.
All right. David Morrel wins. Controversially, I saw all over social media. I got to confess, Mrs. Rives and I were out at dinner. I did not see the Morrel fight live. I want your scorecard. There were a lot of people that thought Khatev, the Russian, was robbed in this fight. What did you think on the undercard here from New York?
I mean, I can't say robbed. It's hard because the fight was so action-filled. There was some close rounds. Both guys did a lot of good work. The official scorecards were 96-93 and 95-94 in favor of Morrel. One judge had it 95-94 for Khatev. That's how I had the fight. So your difference of opinion is like one round. I mean, I guess we talk all the time, TJ, the range of acceptable scores. I mean, you give it to Morrel by a round, I can't really get too mad about it. I don't agree with it, but I'm not going to like say you're on the take or you're an idiot or anything like that. It certainly could have been an either way kind of fight. Morrel had his moments. Khatev hit his moments. I think people might lean towards thinking that Khatev was the deserved winner because he's the guy that had the one knockdown in the fight. Morrel had never been dropped in his career, and he did knock him down. I want to say it was in like round 5, I believe. And it was not like a little, soft touch knockdown. It was a good, clean shot. I mean, one thing about Khatev, he is just a strong bull, and not a surprise to me, TJ. We talked about it. I mean, this is a guy I had on my prospect list at the end of last year. I've been watching him since he turned pro, and even when he was in the Olympics, I've been following Khatev and knowing a lot about him. I've seen a lot of his fights. He's 10-0. Now he's 10-1. I've probably seen 8 of his fights going into this one. So I was very familiar with him. And I was actually, when I said to everybody when this fight came up, this is like the sleeper fight because a lot of people don't really know Khatev because he hasn't had a high profile. They look at Morrel like, oh, he's coming off a loss against Benavidez. I was like, dude, this is going to be a good fight, I promise. And that's exactly what it was. So I give Morrel a lot of credit for coming off of that kind of loss not that long ago. That was only in February to take on a very solid guy that there's really no upside to beating, right? If you beat him, okay, you beat a guy that nobody ever heard of. If you lost, it's really a rough loss because nobody ever heard of the guy. So, but they no problem. They took the fight. And for Khatev, as a professional, he's taken a monumental step up. I mean, he's a great amateur, but never fought anybody even on the same fucking stratosphere as David Morrel as a pro.
So along those lines, Morrel got beaten up and got decision by Benavidez. He struggled to beat Khatev tonight. Do we have some questions in the short term about how good is Morrel, the former Cuban Olympian? He fights out of Minnesota.
Wasn't an
Olympian.
Olympian.
Some questions?
Not an Olympian.
David was not an Olympian. He was just a Cuban. Okay.
Yeah, just Cuban. I mean, he was from the Cuban program and a tremendous amateur. I mean, I don't have questions. I mean, he was in with a really good fighter. Khatev is a bona fide guy. This is not like a nobody. This is an Olympic medal winner. This is a guy that was for years on the Russian national team, who's got background in the amateurs and is a very good fighter. They have similar number of professional fights. So, you know, did David struggle a little bit? Yeah, I mean, I guess, but he got the win. He got knocked down for the first time, but I don't hold that against the guy. Guys get knocked down all the time. Pretty much every great fighter you could think of has been on the deck, you know, at least, you know, here or there. Not a surprise. So I just look at this as like a quality matchup. He got the close win. I don't think it damages Khatev. I think anybody that watched the fight would want to see him again. And if Turkey continues to do what he's been doing in his recent events, I see no reason why he wouldn't look to try to bring Khatev back in the right fight. You know, in the next couple of shows, there's zero reason why you wouldn't want to do that. Let him get a little bit of a rest and see who's out there that's willing to step in the ring with this man. I'm gonna tell you right now, there's a lot of guys that would say, you know, Matt, thanks, but no thanks on Khatev, unless they bring, you know, a huge amount of money to their attention.
Again, for the audience that has joined us, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe. We're doing this live. A lot of you watch on demand after the fact, middle of the night, Saturday, time zone displaced, whatever, early Sunday, etc. We had great audience, Dan, for us on the recap of the Katie Taylor
trilogy. I hope they
subscribe
to the channel.
Yes, please. The Katie Taylor trilogy win over Amanda Serrano. We've given you this 2 nights in a row. The least you can do is help us out, peeps. Hit the like button down below. Subscribe if you love the live content. We're doing this exclusively on YouTube. Be engaged with this channel. That will help us out. Also, Dan, if they comment below the video, that helps in the algorithm. When the algorithm, as we're told, sees people commenting and engaging with the video, that helps as well. Put some comments on the actual video if you like the programming, what you thought of the fights tonight. Let's run through it again.
I got one more thing, though, that I was thinking about with Morrel and Khatev that we were just talking about.
Quick.
I'm not going to do it real quick. I'm going to take my sweet-ass time is what I'm going to do. When you go from super middleweight to light heavyweight, there's a difference. I feel like that's one of the toughest jumps.
7 pounds, as a matter of fact, while you're being a smart ass to me. Go ahead.
When you switch weight divisions from certain weight classes, there's a tradition where guys are much it's not viewed as difficult of a jump that guys, you know, easily can win titles in those other weight divisions. I've always felt, as I've watched boxing, that jump from 68 to 75 is a little bit more complicated. And I feel like David Morrel, who was the perfect size at light heavyweight, at super middleweight rather, has looked rather pedestrian in his handful. Has got now 3 fights, I believe, as a light heavyweight. He didn't look great in the first fight, which was back in August of last year when he was on the card in California. I attributed part of that because it was super hot and they were right at the time where the sun was the brightest. It was bad for both guys. And then he obviously had the fight with David Benavidez, which he lost. He scored a knockdown against Benavidez, but he still lost a pretty clear decision. And then he came back tonight, and yes, he got the win, but he struggled a little bit. And so sometimes, you know, as we've said 1,000 times, the weight classes are created for a reason. And he may be a guy that looks like a tweener, where he might not be able to make 168 anymore as he's matured, but 175 to be at the very elite level might be a bridge too far. We're going to find out how it goes in the next couple of fights for him.
All right, now let's do this for the peeps that have joined us. Again, give a couple of quick thoughts on Hamzah Shiraz's TKO win. If they just joined us and they didn't hear your comments live, a couple of quick thoughts as he wiped out Berlanga at the end of the 4th round, and then with a couple of punches just to begin the first 20 seconds of the 5th round, it's a TKO.
Listen, he showed the punching power. He showed power as a middleweight. You always wonder if a guy's going to carry the power up, as I just mentioned about what's happened in the terms of the rise from 168 to 175. But Hamzah was really struggling to make 160. He's obviously a huge, huge man in terms of his physical dimensions at 160. So clearly the weight issue was real. At 168, he was definitely more comfortable, and he still showed the power. And when you connect clean the way he did and put your punches together, he didn't just knock him out with one shot. He hurt him with one shot and then put him down with 2 or 3 others. And, you know, Berlanga, I don't think has ever been hit like that in his career. I mean, yeah, we mentioned about the Canelo knockdown, but it was kind of a flashy-ish type of knockdown. He wasn't super hurt or anything like that. Never been down before that. You know, he got He got clipped.
Berlanga to me showed something getting up from the second knockdown. I said it earlier. I repeat it here for the audience that just joined us. I didn't think he was going to get up. I thought he was going to get counted out. And we didn't really address this. I thought David Fields took, I'm going to do it on purpose, forever.
I said that. He did
to administer the count and then let Shiraz have a chance to knock him out at the end. And Frank Warren was right there in the front row, almost got up on the ring apron after how long that took.
And then the bell rang.
That he counted. I think David was also confused. I'm not making excuses. I think he was confused that the round was maybe over because he clearly looked over like at the timekeeper, like, is the round over? Then he pointed at Shiraz, like, go back. And then they said fight, and then they rang the bell. But it took a month, it seemed like, from when Berlanga got up for the 8 count.
I know they have to, New York is a commission where they make them administer the 8 count, but then they have the whole, go to the side, come to me, and make sure their balance is okay. But again, that shouldn't take as long. So he definitely got a few extra seconds there. And you'd like to see if Shiraz was able to get off 1 or 2 more shots before the round ended, maybe he would have ended it. It became academic because he blitzed him in the first few seconds of the next round. But like I said, David Fields to me has always been an outstanding referee. I don't think he was bad tonight. I just thought he may have been slightly slow on the count on that one.
And certainly he made the right call on stopping the fight right away in the 5th. Boom, boom, the 2 big shots. He's down again with the gloves on the ground and staggered, and that's enough before he gets seriously.
The point that I was making earlier about that is if the knockdowns that happened in the previous round had not occurred and he just got nailed and staggered the way he did, that caused him to stop it, but those previous knockdowns hadn't happened, Fields wouldn't have stopped the fight. But he knows the guy's been damaged badly on the 2 knockdowns. Now he's damaged yet again and looks in big trouble. So I'm going to call it a day. And Berlanga, their side, I didn't notice any complaints or anybody from their team or Berlanga himself or Berlanga's father or anything like that. They were not in there, yelling and screaming. They should have stopped it. It was a perfect stoppage. That's what you'd like to see.
Bloody nose, staggered, knocked down, fight's over. Real quick, give 90 seconds to the audience that has joined us in the last few minutes on Shakur Stevenson and his win over William Zepeda. Impressive stuff down the stretch of the fight. Go ahead.
I think this is the best win that he's had. Not only because of beating a quality opponent, because he's beaten other quality opponents. I think that like Oscar Valdez at his best was probably better than, let's say, Zepeda. But he didn't do it in the dynamic fashion that he did it tonight against William Zepeda. And he's beaten other good contenders and other good fighters. He's beaten Jamel Herring when Jamel was still pretty good. He beat Robson Conceição when he was a legit contender. And, he's got some accomplishment on his record. But this was the fight where people really were like all over him. His social media and in the media and the fans just relentless about, you're boring. And he's had the 2 bad, terrible, horrible fights that we have to still talk about with Hardatunian and also against Edwin De Los Santos, where everybody was walking out of the building before the fight was over, including the Hardatunian fight, which took place in his hometown of Newark. That's never a good thing when they're leaving your fight before it's like into the 9th or 10th round. They're like, I'm done. This is boring shit. So he had that. You got Turkey, who's been out there telling everybody, I don't want to see any Tom and Jerry fights. He's been, I thought Shakur showed a good sense of humor because he had a baseball hat on that said Tom and Jerry, and I think it had a little cartoon of the.
I always enjoyed Tom and Jerry, but I understand why it doesn't make for great boxing. The cartoon is one thing.
I think he was like, you know what, I'm going to show you guys what I'm all about, and William Zepeda took it. He was on the other end of that, and I thought Shakur fought a really good fight. It was an exciting fight. That's the way you want to see. I've always said this. I like boxers who also like to fight. That's why I was always a big fan of like Shane Mosley. He didn't have to get into a brawl. He could go in there and outbox a guy easy. Same with Oscar De La Hoya. Same with Meldrick Taylor. Those are the types of fighters I like. Guys with great speed. Guys with great intelligence. Guys who have great skills. And Shakur falls into that category. But he's never shown the kind of style the way that those other guys did, where they would stand and fight from time to time. And when I say that, I don't mean be reckless and be stupid and just hang your chin out. I mean, do what he did. They showed some clips and some highlights where he stood right in front of William Zepeda and just gave him some head movement and moved the shoulders and used the roll and did all those things that made him either cleanly miss or, where he didn't take the brunt of the shot. He might have got hit on a shoulder, but it wasn't anything that was going to be damaging. And he stood in the pocket. Winky Wright used to do that all the time. I mean, those are the guys when they fight in that style. That's my favorite kind of boxing.
Once again, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button to help us out. Savages are still rolling through with the comments. Let me get some more questions or comments from people that we didn't hit earlier. Quantum, if I have this, says Berlanga was a victim of poor matchmaking at the beginning of his career that didn't give him any experience. He got exposed tonight. All right, there's somebody's opinion on that. Let's see. I'm trying to get people.
By the way, let me just make a comment
on
about that real quick.
Go ahead.
When they say that Berlanga was exposed because they didn't put him in with anybody in the beginning of his career, I can tell you, okay, Brad Goodman, who was the matchmaker at Top Rank, who has been my close personal friend for probably close to 30 years, before I was ever covering boxing, before he ever was a matchmaker at Top Rank. We go back that far into like the early 90s. When they were building up Berlanga and Brad was making those matches, they were desperate to find guys that they thought would go rounds with him. Not necessarily that would beat him, but he would say to me before the fight, I think this guy's going to go 3 or 4 rounds with Berlanga. And he would get knocked out in like 90 seconds. And then the next fight, you know what? I got a guy who's going to take him the distance this night. He would get rid of him in like 45 seconds. I mean, so they were trying to get guys that would go the distance. It's not their fault that Berlanga was punching, you know, like a freaking mule and knocking these guys out. And it became such a thing because ESPN is showing all the fights and they're getting hyped up about it because he's scoring spectacular knockouts. I remember some fights where you'd have like the commentators on ESPN, like Joe Tessitore and the group, they would start talking about it's not about if he's going to get the first round knockout. Is he going to get it in the first minute, the second minute, or the third minute? It became like a thing. How long is he going to go? And they would have the clock, how long his deepest fight had gone. And was this guy going to be able to get the farthest into the fight? So, yeah, they were trying to get him rounds. They weren't trying to match him with nobodies to just let him run them over. They were purposely trying to match him with guys that would at least be able to hang in with him for a few rounds or give him some competition. It's not their fault that they weren't not able to do that. So you want to say he was exposed, you know, whatever. But he did beat some okay guys. It wasn't like he only beat bums. He beat, like, for example, Romer Alexis Angulo. Not a superstar, but a guy who had fought for a world title. A guy who had gone the distance with Zurdo Ramirez. These are guys that he beat pretty handily. So, you know, I don't accept that. That to me, that's a lazy comment, is what that is.
Ricky says, "Speak for yourselves. I wanted to see Berlanga take some more punishment." Okay, well, you know, the Shiraz fans might have been bloodthirsty too. He's
polarizing, TJ. How about that?
Anybody else that's new or different with a comment? They are all applauding you for getting on me that you should take your time and that they don't have to leave. But at some point, we both got to go to bed, and you also are going to write on your Substack.
I am
here in a few moments. I think that's pretty well it on the comments from everybody. Let's see. Nope, I think we're good. What is this from Elvis? Shakur pillow-fisted, no power Stevenson. Well, I mean, he got Zepeda's attention some. I thought Antonio Tarver made an interesting analyst observation. He's been there, done that, and said Shakur's had hand problems, and he said, I don't see him sitting down and twisting the hands with the punches to have more snap on them, to have more zip on them. Again, I defer to those guys that know about those things, but certainly Shakur landed significant shots on Zepeda throughout the fight for what it's worth.
I've also never been somebody, and I don't understand the obsession with boxing fans or supposed boxing fans, that you're supposed to knock everybody out. It's some guys are just not blessed with power. Simple as that. Right. So they shouldn't have a career. Shakur Stevenson is one of the best fighters in boxing. Okay, he's not a big puncher. That's
and he looked at tonight. I thought he should have boxed more and used his lateral movement a little more. But
there's a lot of great fighters that were not punchers.
He just chose to stay on the ropes some and draw Zepeda in, and the strategy worked. Alaska Bo says, I think Diego Pacheco wins next Saturday. I'd love to see him and Shiraz. Sign me up for that, but I don't know if those two will fight each other in a contender fight.
I very much. I mean, I'm not. I agree in terms of it would be an interesting matchup, but I very, very highly doubt they would make that fight. I mean, again, it's all when I say that. It's all with the caveat that if Turkey decides it's a fight he wants to pay the money for it, then most guys, if they're paying them enough money, they'll take the fight. But Pacheco is not quite as advanced, I guess, in terms of the high-profile fights that Shiraz has had between the Ammo fight, between the Adames fight, between this fight in the main event. Pacheco is slightly behind him in terms of the development, even though he's also an outstanding contender. Yeah, that'd be a heck of a fight. So, you know, if he beats McCombie, which I think he probably will, I mean, that would be a very good matchup. The super middleweight division, once you get past Canelo at the top, who's holding most of the belt or hold the belts now, there's good fighters in the division. I mean, there's Shiraz is there, Pacheco is there. You've got, you know, depending on if you still view them as top contenders, if there's a Charlo or a Caleb Plant, those type of guys. But then there's others also. There's Christian and Billy. I mean, there's quality fighters in the weight class, and they're going to make some good fights. I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody.
Well, Wes is saying, what about Callum Smith? He says that would be a perfect one, and that's an English fighter, too, if Shiraz goes back to England and fights him while he waits for a possible Canelo matchup.
Yeah, there's Buatsi is there also.
That's interesting, too.
That's another British fight.
Other than that, I think we are good. I think we are good on all of the different comments. Final thoughts. Anything else here in the Saturday Night Live recap mode off this? This show was so much ridiculously better than the Fatal Fury card in early May with the 3 basic snooze fest fights that happened with Teofimo Lopez, Devin Haney, and Ryan Garcia losing. I think that goes without saying. We got much more entertainment, including a booming night for Hamzah Shiraz. He's the star of the night with what he did to Berlanga. That's my final thought. Anything else from you?
Shiraz certainly is a reasonable person to pick. I picked Shakur Stevenson as my star of the night because of the pressure he was under, and to perform in a way that was pleasing to the fans, which, you know, when guys have to go out of their normal style, sometimes it doesn't work out so great because they feel that pressure. I thought he handled it great, and he put on a heck of a fight. So I give him my gold star, and I give Shiraz would be like my, you know, gold A or gold B or whatever. But they both performed very, very well.
Maybe the silver star. Yeah.
The main thing is this, and I owe this to me the simple most thing of all of this business that we discussed. If you're a Joe and you bought the fight and you spent your $60, you turned off your screen and you were satisfied with what you paid, because that was a worthwhile card. And it wasn't the same way when you did that after the Canelo Skull fight, for example. That card was terrible. It wasn't like that after the card that was in Times Square, as you mentioned. I think another big thing, by the way, is there was actual fans there that turned out for the event, and they were making noise and they were into it. And that was not the case in Saudi Arabia, where 6:30 in the morning and everybody was half asleep. And same thing goes for the Times Square card, not because fans wouldn't have been excited, maybe, even if the action didn't necessarily warrant it, but they didn't have fans there. They had a few hundred
That's
people
true.
that were inside like a closed off area. Not even people on the street could look in. So this made sense. You're in an actual place with actual fans. They priced the tickets pretty cheap, and they put on a tremendous fight card. And so they're not all going to be winners. Some are going to be less than winners. But you got to give the credit where credit's due. They made 4 excellent fights. I think all 4 of the fights going into the fights had chance to be excellent. The one I thought was maybe the least chance was that Puello and Matias fight. It turned out to be very, very good. The Khatev fight with Morrel was everything I had hoped for and more. Stevenson, I thought, was even a better fight than I had any right to expect, or anybody did. And while the Berlanga and Shiraz fight started off a little slow, you're never going to complain when you get that kind of explosive ending with those types of knockouts. And that was the only knockout of the main 4 fights. So that was a pretty good way to end things. So all in all, I was very satisfied with the product.
We wondered what would happen if and when, and Zepeda did. When he caught Shakur, we found out the answer. Shakur handled it and beat him. And then we found out that Edgar Berlanga went against Hamzah Shiraz, and they had to scoop him up with a snow shovel in the end, even though it's the summertime for the end of this. My friend, have at it with your Substack, the Dan Rafael Fight Freaks Unite Substack and newsletter. Read him there with all of his thoughts on this. You've heard a lot of his thoughts tonight live on YouTube. Again, thank you for being with us. Dan is on his way to Las Vegas for the Manny Pacquiao Mario Barrios card in Vegas, the PBC card next weekend. We'll be live in and around it on this YouTube channel. So make sure you're subscribed, hit the bell, and you'll get notified. Comment on this video also and down below us. Yes?
Check out my interview with Manny Pacquiao, which is on this channel right now.
That's correct.
And look ahead. We're going to have some other interviews that will be going up over the next few days. We're going to have Daniel Dubois.
That's correct.
Who I interviewed, who's going to be defending his IBF title and challenging Alexander Usyk for the other 3 belts in the undisputed title fight that is next Saturday. And my interview with Mario Barrios, who is going to be defending his title against Manny Pacquiao. We'll
even stick the Jesse Bam Rodriguez interview up as well. He's fighting next weekend in Texas, not to be outdone by the Pacquiao card or the Usyk Dubois card. How many screens and how many eyeballs are we going to have next Saturday?
I'm a little worried about that because I'm going to, I want to watch the, there's going to be no way I can handle all 3 in the same night, especially
overlap. Right.
Well, not only that, but it's more complicated working remotely than when I'm here in my office with a better setup.
No
but, I'm going to do what I got to do. I'm going to go see Pacquiao.
We will be chatting with you from Vegas later on in the week. For now, get after it on the Substack. To the audience, thank you. Again, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of you with us live. We love it.
We appreciate it.
Even if you see us on demand, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're commenting on the video. Thank you. We love it. Big Dan, have a good night. Have a good rest of the weekend here in this July heat. It heated up in New York tonight. Good stuff, Big Dan Rafael.
Talk to you later, dude.
I am merely TJ Rives. Thank you for watching us here as we've recapped things. A Fight Freaks Unite live recap of the Saturday night Ring Magazine pay-per-view. Shiraz and Stevenson with the big nights tonight. You've been watching it here on our YouTube page. Good night.